Hello, my name is Jeff Kane, one of the partners with the W3 Group. I've been learning, developing, practicing, and deploying continuous improvement on a global level for the past 30 years. I'd like to take a moment to share with you the interrelationship of Hoshin Kanri, value stream mapping, Improvement Kata, and the impact they have with obtaining an organizational deployment of true continuous improvement. Another way to define it is, what is it that we're trying to achieve throughout our organization to take ourselves to new higher levels of performance? Where specifically do we need to focus our attention? And how do we bridge the gap between the problem areas in our business to achieving the company objectives throughout the enterprise? To begin, let's first talk about some of the issues and gaps that we currently see in organizations with regards to deploying continuous improvement throughout businesses today. A lot of companies that we've observed haven't established where they're going or how to even get there. We see lots of activity. Everyone's busy, people going in many different directions, but not achieving the necessary outcomes to make the company successful. What we need to see is everyone in the organization aligned to a defined corporate direction. The second issue or gap is the dissatisfaction with the business results or improvements, which seems to be a common thread throughout organizations. In 2007, Industry Week came out with the results of a survey that was conducted regarding lean implementation and found that 98%, yes, 98% of the companies surveyed stated that they did not achieve their desired objectives. Shingo also conducted a survey of the companies that had received the prestigious Shingo Award and found that many were actually backsliding from the improvements that had once been achieved. CEOs are expressing their concerns that their people aren't performing the correct activities that are required to achieve the company's goals and objectives. Some even say that they're not hitting their targets because the Hoshin Kanri process is broken or missing something. Then we hear, but we've always done it that way. This brings us to our third issue of people are struggling with aligning their specific activities to bridge the gap of achieving the goals that have been established for the company. They see the company objectives as being too hard to deliver, this big, hairy, audacious goal that they can't get their arms around. We have also found that companies don't have the mechanisms in place to bridge the gap between the company direction and the specific activities of the employees in order to ensure the organization's goals and objectives are being met year after year. What is traditionally used to try and bridge the gap is an action list defining the what, who, and when. How many of you have managed with an action list? I know I used to be the king of action lists. As a vice president, I even had what we called the master action list. It covered a good portion of one of the walls in my office. We all know that it's impossible to predict the future and define exactly what you need to do in order to accomplish the company goals based on our own individual mindsets as managers. Trying to predict the future is a lot like trying to drive down a country road at night with no lights while looking out the back window. Another issue that we have seen is that most large organizations have now hired their own internal lean staff to promote and do the improvement efforts. Generally, what they practice is what we call event-based improvements from process to process that are sporadic, few and far between each event, so what we're left with is business as usual. This leads us to our next issue of unsustainable results. Traditionally, sites would make an improvement on a process expecting it to sustain. However, what we have found is that a process never stays the same. It will actually regress over time if you don't have a continuous focus on improvement. This is exactly why Toyota doesn't rely on a lean staff for their improvements. They have an expectation built into their culture that everyone in the organization is continually focused on small incremental improvements. The last issue or gap that we've observed is the lack of innovation to keep up with the crazy ever-changing demands in the market. We see organizations are missing the ingredient of having a culture that expects their people to focus on daily continuous improvement as part of their job. Therefore, we've missed the boat in tapping into the creativity, solutions, from our most important assets, which are our people. In most cases, we've actually stifled our people by managing through results, which has resulted in organizations that lack in learning, adapting, and achieving true innovation that is necessary to take businesses to newer, higher levels of performance. It's like this cartoon. Just continue doing it the same way, but I'd like to see different results. Some say the definition for insanity is if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten. Now that we've discussed some of the issues and gaps that we see with organizations related to deploying continuous improvement throughout the enterprise, I'd like to share with you how to link the day-to-day activities to the direction of the organization. A simple way to describe it is what, where, and how to achieve a cultural mindset of true continuous improvement at the enterprise level. Let's first start with the what. We need to determine what is the overall direction of the company, what the company goals are, what the objectives are, and what are the specific associate goals and objectives that are needed to achieve the overall strategies of the organization. The process that we use to integrate the direction, or the what, throughout the organization is Hoshin Kanri, or what we call management by planning. Hoshin, or MVP, is a team-based planning process used to establish and monitor business goals and objectives. Hoshin, or MVP, starts with the most senior leadership team and cascades through the organization, providing the purpose, focus, and alignment of what needs to take place in order to support the direction of the business. Once we determine the what for the organization, we now need to understand where. Are the specific needs of the organization? Where are the particular processes that need to be worked on within the value stream? And where's the gap between where we're currently at and where we're trying to go to take the organization to higher levels of performance? We accomplish this by using a process of learning to see throughout the organization by mapping out the entire value stream. We first start by understanding the current state of all the processes that support the information and material flows from the time we take the order from the customer until the time the product gets shipped. Once the current state is understood, we then start designing the future state map, which is aligned and in support of the company direction. After the future state map is designed, you can now see the gaps between the current future state, which leads us to the specific processes that need to be worked on to start closing the gaps in order to achieve the desired direction for the company. Now that we've determined the what for the company through Hoshin Kanri and understand the where through value stream mapping, we can now discuss the how. We have to ask ourselves, how do we solve the gaps identified in the future state map? How are we going to achieve the specific activities needed to achieve the company goals and objectives? How are we going to sustain the improvements that we accomplish? How are we going to develop a cultural mindset of continuous improvement that thrives on learning through true experimenting? How can we adapt quicker to ever-changing market demands? And how can we be more innovative, taking the organization to levels of performance that has never been experienced before? We do this through a process called Improvement Kata. Improvement Kata is a learned skill that is based from a systematic set of routines. By learning, applying, and practicing these skills on a regular basis, it promotes a mindset of true daily continuous improvement throughout the organization. You can think of Improvement Kata as two sides of a coin. One side is about developing people through the coaching kata by teaching the Improvement Kata thinking and acting. The other side of the coin is about improving the process on a regular basis by applying the Improvement Kata. Specifically, Kata provides an avenue to link the process to the company goals and drive results to the bottom line. Is a way to highlight the need for a specific tool out of the lean toolbox at the time of need. Is a way to continually strive and make improvements, which also keeps us from backsliding. Is a way to ensure we are working on the right issues that are in the way of achieving the company goals and objectives. helps us to scientifically work through problems and see them as opportunities to strengthen our organization. Helps us understand and look at our processes in a whole new light. Provides a means to have an entire organization focus on continuous improvement instead of a select few. Is about small incremental improvements versus sporadic event-based improvements. Is a way to help people see the elephant one bite at a time. And is a way to develop people and provide accountability. Using Kata helps us to strive towards higher levels of performance in our organization. By broadening our mindset from apparent certainty to uncertainty, which is the learning zone, it creates a culture of learning, adapting, and innovation. Now you can see the link of what through Hoshin Kanri, the where through value stream mapping, and now the how through Toyota Kata. So there you have it, achieving an organizational deployment of true continuous improvement throughout the enterprise through what, where, and how. Good luck with your journey, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to contact me. Thanks for listening.